Welcome to Death and Aliens, an in-depth look at horror and sci-fi TV from two friends who vaguely know what they're doing. I'm Courtney.
I'm MK.
How are you today?
I'm I'm all right. I'm all right. It's been a week. Last week, for some reason, was just like the weirdest week of work ever. Um, like Monday, I'm trying to remember something. I feel like something like weird and off happened every day of the
Monday
week.
you were here
Monday
with
I was here, and I don't remember if anything weird happened like during the school day. But then Tuesday, I was I was told at like the last minute of the day on Monday and didn't fully read the email because I looked for my name in the email, but really I should have looked at the numbers because they decided for the book fair. Oh, you teach English. You're the one who wants your kids to have books, right? So I had to give up literally an entire day of teaching so that I could take all the middle school kids to the field trip instead of their homerooms, or to the book fair instead of like their homerooms taking them to the book fair. I had to take every one.
great. Great. Love that for you.
Yeah. And then on Wednesday, we had to go to a concert. Like the kids had to go sit and watch a concert from another school. But like the music teacher of the other school is my ex's husband.
Okay.
So that was really awkward.
Yeah.
And then on Thursday we had mass, which was fine, except for that we usually have mass on Wednesdays. So it like fucked everybody's life up thinking about mass on Thursday. And then
Yeah.
on Friday we had a mindfulness assembly, which the kids like acted like it was a complete joke. And I was just like,
Morons.
I was like,
Children are morons.
I quit. And then this week we have shit going on like every day also because it's Christmas. So like teachers aren't allowed to actually teach fucking anything.
Right. Totally fair. Totally fair.
So, was report cards last week.
But you knocked those out of the park.
Like, did I finish them on Tuesday? And I only messed up two comments.
Ah, you are such a pro.
I know. It was great. It was great. So, how are you?
Well, I am a bit under the weather. So if you're watching this and listening, I am so sorry if my voice goes out or I am coughing or sneezing or look like I am dying. Um, I'm doing my best, but it
Oh,
is indeed the holiday season. So last week I worked at least 80 hours. Um, maybe a little more. At least
good.
80 though.
Yeah.
So that's cool. So I worked like 2 nights and I worked Wednesday and Thursday night in a row after I had my Women in Music networking party on Tuesday. So I was getting home late every night. And then Friday like existed and I just fell to pieces. I was so
Oh,
tired. I but I went and saw the piano lesson with Noelle and it was incredible. LaTanya Jackson directed it, who is
okay.
Samuel L. Jackson's wife, and
Mm-hmm.
Samuel L. Jackson starred as it is starring in it. It was
Stop.
incredible, and like they do some songs from the Parchment Farms, which like ties it into my other job because we have the Lomax collection from the Parchment Farms, and so that was very neat. 'Cause I didn't know any
Yeah.
piano lesson. I just kind of was along for the ride because I just watch everything that I can watch. Um,
Right.
but it was so good. I think it's a limited run, but if anyone is in New York between now and whenever it ends, it seems like everything is ending on Broadway next week. So maybe get started on that. Um,
Well, to be fair, this episode literally won't come out till after Christmas.
okay,
So,
well, to be fair, then like everything literally is closing next week. But from when we're recording, a lot of things are early closing recording next week. Um, So K-pop ain't no more.
Yes.
Like K-pop got 1 week, ain't no more got 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I saw Ain't No More. It was a great show. It was intense, but it was great. But yeah, so that's where I'm at, and I'm running in circles in my brain and pushing through. So,
Oh, sorry. It is a limited run, but it runs till January 29th.
oh, good. So end of January. You got a little bit of time then. You got a
Yes.
whole other month. I think literally.
Yeah, no. I think this will be the 20, yeah, Thursday's the 29th. Yep.
Yep. You're welcome. 1 month.
Yeah,
1 month.
1 month more.
Um,
Um,
yeah, you know what always makes me feel better though when I'm feeling under the weather?
um, I'm hoping that you'll say it's some uh kick-ass words of affirmation.
You know, it absolutely is. That is exactly what I was gonna say.
Uh, and this is a great one.
Ugh, I can't wait.
My future is a golden, sparkly explosion of fucking awesomeness.
Ugh, preach. Preach. Just have to get there.
Right. We have to survive today.
And I
But
can survive for like 1 week, and then I will make it through one more week, and I am set. But
um,
in the middle of trying to get through our own lives, we are also trying to get through and cope with Bates Motel, which is not as easy as you'd think.
no, it sure isn't.
So today we are discussing Bates Motel season 4, not season 2. I said it right this time.
Okay.
Episode 8, titled Unfaithful.
Okay, now I just want to give full disclosure to the listeners, watchers, whatever, before we go any further. Because of the holiday season, Courtney and I are pre-recording some things. So we have already watched episode 9. So I'm going to try my very best to not let what happens in episode 9 color my commentary on episode 8. But I'm just putting that out there now because I have a lot of thoughts.
I will tell you to cut it out.
Spoil anything. I'm just saying color my
Personal
opinion. Like
emotion.
my emotions, yeah.
Fair, totally fair. I have very limited range of emotions right now because I'm
Yeah.
very tired. So I'd probably be fine. You can listen to me and you'll never know anything I feel about anything. It's totally okay. So just ignore Mary Kate for this episode.
Cool.
JK, everything's fine. So this episode aired May 2nd of 2016. It was rated 8.6 out of 10.
Nice. I think
Totally fair.
yeah.
Totally fair. Um, can you guess what the number one song is?
Is it still the same horrible song?
It's Still Work. How did this song, like, don't get me wrong. I don't want to diss Rihanna. She's incredible. But this
I mean,
song,
it was not her best work.
not at all. Anyways, we're still here. But our number one movie, very rightfully so, is Captain America Civil War, which
Mm.
is a gem. I didn't know when I'm sure I've talked about this before, but I didn't know until I was rewatching the Marvel films just how much I loved the Captain America ones. Like, so good. So good. Love them. The number one book was The Last Mile by David Baldacci. I have not read it. I think I have 5 books by him that I also haven't read, but
We-
he's very popular.
Weirdly, before I came home to record this with you, I was just organizing the bookshelves in my classroom because they weren't organized in any way. So I decided to organize them by author's last name. And so I started at the beginning of the alphabet. And I have a book by him on my bookshelf for my kids that I've literally
You know the
never
name.
read. Nope.
All right, all right. Well, I hear he's very popular. People really like him.
I do know it wasn't whatever the one you just said was the number
No,
one
this is
book,
an
though.
older one. This is an old, I mean, it's 2016, so I guess it's not like that old. But he's had a lot of other big hits that like are still talked
Mm,
about that came out before this one and after this one.
okay.
So yeah, very popular guy in the crime world. Um, on this day, I just have some random facts for you. Some sad, some not.
Okay.
I'm gonna start from the bottom and go to the top. So, Tupac's mother, Fanny, I can't read my own handwriting. I think that's what that says. Passed away at 69.
So sad.
Very sad. Um, but it is Teachers' Day in Iran and
Okay.
National Education Day in Indonesia.
Woo!
So, yay, teachers.
I have been to one of those countries.
Well, not when you came to see me. Um, that's what I will never not think of you in Indonesia together. I think we've talked about this on the podcast.
Yeah.
Never will I think about Indonesia, not think of you. Um, and
Yeah,
you
because
know,
for those of you who don't know, I lied to everyone I'd ever met and said I was going to Indonesia on vacation and then came back to the States and surprised everyone and showed up at Courtney's work.
and I cried. Good times.
Yeah, that was great.
And I just yelled across the coffee shop, "You said you were in Indonesia!" It was a good
It
time.
was a
My
great time.
coworker was like, "Please go take some time and come back. Please go talk to your friends and come back." It's like, okay. But last, but I'm sure certainly not least, Mark Selby won the World Snooker Championship,
Fantastic.
which is a thing I didn't even know existed.
I only did because of, oh God, what is the name of the Broadway play that's about the snooker championships?
I obviously don't know.
Oh man, what is it? Uh,
Oh,
Broadway play about snooker. The Nap.
like NAP, the nap.
Yeah, it's called The Nap, and it was on Broadway in 2018, and it was about it was
Nap.
like it was about the World Snooker Championship.
I was here in 2018.
Well, why didn't you see The Nap?
It's beyond me. It sounds like it would have been first on my list.
Apparently, it was like very hysterical. It was by the same guy who wrote One Man, Two Governors.
I do not know that show.
Oh, it's how James Corden won a Tony.
Mm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Must have been written really well. Um, yeah, so if you couldn't tell by my array of random facts, my brain is all over the place today. So get
Good.
ready because
Get ready.
I have thoughts. The director is Steven Surgic, who is a new director because we
Ooh,
are at the end of season 4 and getting new directors still.
I was gonna say I haven't heard that name yet, have I?
You have it, and I think it was pretty clear watching it that he was a new director.
Hmm.
In a good way. I thought it
Yeah.
like no shame Tucker Gates, but this guy like rocked it. I was
Yeah.
very impressed with his directing. Um, and everything makes sense because he's known for this was one of his earlier shows, but now
Okay.
he's known for The Witcher, the
Mm,
2017 Punisher, the 2018 Lost in Space, and The Umbrella Academy, which I think is one of the most brilliant shows on TV right now.
all right,
For
fair enough.
across the board, directing, acting, music, writing, incredible across the board. So
Fair enough.
just another plug for Umbrella Academy if you guys haven't seen it. I'm behind, but it is incredible.
I've,
Yeah,
I've,
so
I've never watched a single episode.
you absolutely should. Gerard Way wrote it. He wrote the comic
I
book that I
know.
still have.
I know. I do love Broadway.
Hmm.
I learned how to play the intro to Black Parade on the piano the other day. And then I played it.
I learned how to play it during COVID.
And then I was playing it, and none of my students reacted at all. And I was like, wow, you're all too young.
They're heathens, all of them.
Mhm.
Um, and another reason this episode was such a gem because it was written by none other than Freddie Highmore.
I'm sorry, what?
And it was his writing debut. Right? I had to stop taking notes for a minute because I was like, excuse me. I was like, hold on.
I'm
Directing debut.
no writing.
Writing, the other one.
Here's the
Writing
thing. Here's the thing. Actors transition into directing in
Right.
TV all the time, especially when it's a long-term show. Like Ian Somerhalder directed a shit ton of episodes of Vampire Diaries. Like,
Mr. Carbonell's directed this show.
yes, like that. Fine, fine. Writing the episode,
And such an incredible episode to write too. Like one of the top rated from this season
yeah.
wrote it.
Oh,
Anyways, so obviously I don't have anything new to tell you about him right now because we've talked about him a lot. But this was his writing debut, and that's cool as hell.
that's amazing, and especially because I'm thinking like there were some great like Norman moments in this episode, but there was some other stuff that was just like the DEA stuff was like stuff that he's never even a part of in the episode, so like he doesn't have that attachment to it. Like,
And it's not a thing that's been like, I mean, it's been talked about throughout the show, but it hasn't been, I don't feel like an established part of the show
right.
either. So like it still kind of was up in the air how he was gonna write that, and
That's oh
top notch. I would have given this episode, a higher rating simply because he wrote it. And it was so much better than I would have expected for a writing debut.
mm-hmm.
So,
Especially for someone so young.
so young, yeah.
I mean, he was what? He's my age.
Yeah, so he was like, what, 25?
So
24?
yeah, 24, 25. Are you fucking kidding me?
I know. Could you imagine writing something like this at 24, 25? I can't
No.
imagine writing it now. And I'm a writer. Like,
Right. I mean, like I've published poetry, but like,
I've only published short stories so far, but I've written a whole book. So, like, I've been in the writing world for a bit.
yeah.
It's wild to me, wild to me. Um, and we have like zero extra characters. So I picked one that had a brief interaction. Craig Erickson, who played Agent Howard Collins.
Okay.
Um, yep, very brief moment, but it's actually very fun because he is known for a lot of really small roles. For example, he was the shoeless man in The Magicians. I did watch most of The Magicians, and I don't remember who he was. But his like most well-known role is from 2003. He played the role of a doll in this little show known as Stargate SG-1. So we will see this man again.
You keep telling me that we're going to see these men again, but I don't even remember them in the episode we watched them in, let alone in the future.
Well, when you look him up and you're like, oh, he was in Bates Motel. Like, it'll come back. It'll come back.
It'll come back.
And like every person we talk to on this podcast, like our whole audience is going to remember everything we've told them.
Well, because what's going to happen is it's going to be 2030 and they're going to be really bored when we're in another weird world crisis and they're going to be like, you know what I'm going to do? Listen to 5,000 hours of this podcast. Because to be fair, how many hours of this podcast exist?
7,094.
No, 7,094 was how many total minutes people watched our channel on YouTube, which is not the actual number of minutes.
A lot of numbers. There's a lot of numbers.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, it's been 908 weeks since we uploaded our first video, which I figured out is almost 2.5 years.
It is. It is. I was like 900. I was like 365 is a year. That's almost 3 years.
It is 2.48 years.
Yeah. So I've been on here for 1.23 years probably. I think that's my average.
Oh,
Um,
it's it's been a time.
it's been a time, a good time,
Yeah.
for sure a time. Oh, and now, because we
An
can't
even
get
better
any
time.
longer, well, let's get into it. There is the first moment I knew this was a different director. The first moment, because the first view is this great opening visual of the house and the lit up window, but it didn't have her like silhouette in it like it normally does when you shoot that scene.
Yeah.
And it didn't have the house. The house was a little darker than it normally is too.
Hmm.
Like something's different. I
Yeah.
was like, who directed this? But I really liked it. And I think
Yeah.
it lent itself more to the show getting to its like darker times now.
Mm.
Thought that was good. We start with Norma, as we tend to do, who is just freezing. We don't know what's going on, but she is just frozen solid. And I was like, I feel you, Norma. It's cold.
It is
And
cold. I'm not a fan.
I'm a huge fan, but I am also cold and my throat hurts. So we'll see. So she goes to check on Norman and he's like sleeping or pretending to be asleep, I guess. And then he's like, yes, it's cold, mother. And she's like, okay, I'm gonna try and see if we can fix it up. And she goes downstairs. Everything is like not working, and she can't get to come home. So Norman creepily follows her down, as he apparently is going to do for the rest of the show. Like,
Yeah.
not even just this episode, the rest of the show. I think he's just going to creepily follow people around. That's my prediction. Um,
So fucking weird.
yeah. And so he starts like making comments about the TV because, as we know, Alex bought a new TV for
Hmm.
Norma because he thought
Yeah.
we would both like it, but she's probably right. Um,
Yeah.
and Norman's like super like PO'd about it. He's
Yeah.
like fussy.
He's like having a like shit fit, and he's like, well, maybe if you didn't, you could sell that giant TV to pay to fix the heat. And first of all, the money of fixing the heat was never the fucking question. The
Right.
question was, it was 3 o'clock in the morning and the heat was off.
She's like, it's not like an on-demand service. She's
Yeah,
like,
she was like
"We're open."
they're not roadside assistants, they're
Yeah.
fucking repairmen.
Right. They are not available just because you're cold. That's not
And
how
the worst part that was that I was like, "Ugh, if Alex was there, he'd fix it."
truly though. But also like if Dylan was there, he'd fix it. That's what I thought was gonna happen was Dylan was gonna come by and fix it, and he didn't. Um,
I thought Alex was gonna come downstairs and fix it. We were gonna see that Alex was sleeping there and then just like immediately start the drama. But no.
not yet, not yet. We'll get there. Don't worry. Um, but yeah, so Norman decides that he wants to sleep in the same bed because that'll make them warmer. And I was like, here we go again.
I literally wrote, no, gross, go back to the nut house.
Yes, absolutely. And then another great directing choice. He turns out the lights and we go to the credits. And I was like, oh, I'm
That
already
was
a month
really
away
well
from
done.
this
Really
episode.
well done.
So I was thrilled about that. And then we wake up the next morning and Norma is talking about Norman with Alex. And yes, she's on the phone with Alex. She's telling him about him. And then
Hmm.
Norman like wakes up and comes to talk to her and she's like, okay, I have to go, bye bye bye.
She
And
also, on the phone, she tells Alex she's happy. And I said, you're not happy and you're a bad liar.
right, right. She was much happier when Norman was not there. Um, and then Norman starts being fussy again, and he's like, what's going on? You've made my room into a oh, he's like, you have new curtains. And she's like, yeah, I made them. And he's like, you made my room into a sewing room. And she's like, that's not at all what happened. She's like, I'll move it into Dylan's room. She's like, obviously it's still your room. And it very much is. Like, my mom
Right.
took out my bed and put exercise equipment in there. That was making my room something else. Norman
Um,
was just in the corner.
my first, while she was on the phone with Alex, she said something like she was like, I promise, like I'm gonna tell him. I promise I'm gonna tell him. And I literally just like had like trauma flashbacks to like men telling me that they're gonna tell their girlfriends about us. Like stupid, horrible things. And I was like, Alex, you deserve better. This woman is gaslighting the shit out of you.
I mean, absolutely. We all know. We all know how
And
normal.
and then I also said, you're 18, move out and let her have a sewing room like a regular empty nester, you fuck.
Right. Or just like,
But then I also felt the irony as I was writing that of being 30 and living with my parents, and they just bought a house.
right, but like, you're not a psychopath. Like,
Right,
as
and
far as we all know, you're not a psychopath. So I think it's a little bit of a different situation, but just a little bit.
like a little, only a tiny bit.
Right, right. Um, but yeah, so Norma's like, stop being dramatic, basically. He's like, and Norman says he doesn't like change, and she's like, well, everything has to change. Like, it's just how it is. And then Norma starts being very obvious about um Alex, that she actually cares about him, while she's
Yes.
also saying she's trying to hide it.
Yeah.
But at least she reminds him to take his medicine. So
And
like,
I was like, yeah, definitely don't forget your medicine.
right, like at a minimum, at least he's gonna take his medicine. But to be fair, this entire episode, that is the only time I saw him take his medicine. So, and we've gone through multiple days. Like, I have
Yeah, but
to,
we also haven't seen every second of every day.
but I don't feel comfortable that he's taking his medicine unless I've seen him take his medicine, you know?
Fair.
And I don't trust him.
Fair.
Speaking of other people I don't trust, we go to Rebecca, who is at the airport and she's getting on her flight to Indiana. She's checking in with her boarding pass. She hands over her ID, and the person at the counter is like, "Give me 1 second."
I
And then
literally was immediately I was like, oh shit, they're there
I
for
was
her.
like, they've had her on a like bolo list. Um, so the DA walk up behind her and they're like, "You have to come with us." And while they don't tell us exactly, we know what's coming next. So we
Oh
go back to
yeah.
Alex and Norman for a bit. And Norman goes up to the sheriff's department and he's like, "Can you tell the sheriff that his wife's son is here to see him?" And I
That
was
was
like,
the
okay. Like, be a little more dramatic, Norman. It was
so
ridiculous.
also like just the way his wife's son. I was like, that is like such an uncomfortable phrasing.
Right.
You're just such a child.
He is. He's acting like he's like 11 and his parents are getting divorced and marrying other people. Like,
Right.
it's ridiculous. But then Norman goes to talk to Alex and he is too calm. And I was like, this is terrifying.
Yeah, I don't like medicated Norman. Like I don't like unmedicated Norman, but medicated Norman is concerning on quite a few levels.
Like, unmedicated Norman at least doesn't always know what's happening. And so he gets like out of it a lot. But medicated Norman seems to like just be
If
more like, it's like he got on a Adderall with ADHD. It's like it just straightened him out. And so now
it's
he's consciously making these decisions.
right, like because he's not doing anything better. He's just doing it more like deliberately, and that's fucking weird.
Like he's not being a better person, but he's doing it in a better way that like
Yeah,
can get away with it easier. So so that's good. That's good. I'm gonna guess that we need a different medicine for him.
yeah,
Um,
probably.
yeah. So he takes the reins and he's just like, I just want to say thanks for helping me into Pineview, and I'm gonna find a part-time job so you can be done now. Alex is like, what? And he's like, well, in like 2 weeks we can start getting the paperwork together for you to divorce mother. And he's like, Norman, I don't think you understand what's going on here. And then of course he like blackmails Alex too, because that's all he does now is blackmail people.
I was
And
like, but also he was like acting like Alex like took advantage of her and
yeah,
was like, and he was like, no, no, no. You don't have feelings. She doesn't have feelings for you. That's and she I was like, Norman, you literally don't even know what the fuck is going on.
right. You didn't even know they were married like 2 days ago. Like, get over it. And so then he tells Alex, he's like, we'll get the paperwork together because you don't want everyone to know that what you started out as was a fraud. And I was like, okay, because that is insurance fraud. But
Right. Well, here's the thing. Sure, it would be insurance fraud if they weren't actively in love. Like, like, yes.
right,
Did the marriage probably start on a fishy note?
right.
Sure. Sure. I can say that. But
Mhm.
they were only married for about 47 seconds before they realized they were in love with each other. So
Very
like,
true. Like the whole leading up to the wedding and the like saying I do definitely built on insurance fraud. But like after he put the
bas-
ring on her finger,
right, basically from the time he put that ring on her finger, she was like, "Oh, fuck, this is what healthy love feels like."
right. Like, oh, I'm happy.
Got
I do like
it.
this guy. Yeah. So,
I mean, as someone who like went through a fuck ton of unhealthy relationships and then like started dating someone that I wasn't even sure I liked, and then was like, "Oh, I get it now." Just kidding. That's
everything's fine. It's all okay.
fine.
Yeah. Good times. Good times. Um, and then we go to Dylan and Norma because Dylan sees her packing her car with space heaters. And he's like, "Oh, what's going on?" And she's just like, "Well, Norman came home." And I was like, "Okay, Norma, you didn't even like hold back a bit. Like, she just like off the cuff said it." I was like, "You know, he's immediately gonna be mad about it. Like,
Right.
you could have eased into it a bit. You can't just like act like she's so flippant about things that she knows are big deals. Every time something happens, she's like super flippant about
She's
it.
like, maybe if I say this really casually, people will not feel the anxiety radiating off of my body.
Right. So then she also was like, he's like, "Well, is Alex still living there?" She's like, "Oh no, he moved out for now. Just for now though." And it's like, that's a lot, like to happen at one time.
Yeah.
And then she asks Dylan when he's leaving, and we learn he's leaving in 2 days. And Norma is just like super chill with him. She's like, "Oh, well, we're gonna miss you, but you should totally like come over tonight, bring Emma, we'll go Christmas get the Christmas tree like we talked about." He's just
She
like,
was, and she was like, yeah, like a family. See,
yeah, yeah, that because that tracks. That makes total sense. And I think he was just like too caught off guard to not say yes.
right.
He's just like, yeah, yep, we can do that, I guess. Whew. Then we go to Rebecca, who is talking with the DEA, and she's coming up with all these excuses. She's like, "I have to leave." She's like, "My mother's sick." And they're like, "Why did you just quit your job?" And she's like, "Because my mother's sick." And it's like, obviously, like that, like that's not all there is to it. Maybe she's sick. Maybe she's not even sick. Who knows? But like,
Right.
obviously, that's not all there is to it. And then they tell her that their main focus is on Alex. They start questioning her about him.
I
And I was
said,
like,
don't you
no.
fucking dare. Don't you fucking dare go after Romero.
And they basically tell her they want her to be an informant. And like, I thought this was like, even though it's kind of jumpy, I thought this was really well done because we see such brief spurts of the DEA stuff, and
Yeah.
it's such a big deal. Like,
Yeah.
so it's not like you ever, but so you don't like ever feel out of place, even though it's a completely different scene than everything else we're watching.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was really well done.
Because what, that's the only time in the whole episode we have that, right?
I think so. There may be one more, but that might be the last one.
Yeah,
Do you,
no, that's it. That's the only time in the whole episode we have any of the DEA stuff.
you're right. It sure is. It sure is. Um, yeah, but like you never question it. It's just
Right.
falls right.
I didn't even question it until right now when I realized that it isn't in the episode again.
Yeah. And unlike some other shows we watch sometimes, these episodes actually tend to go back to back together. So we can follow a storyline. Not that we don't love those other shows, but
Yeah.
just a different time. Um, so we go back to Norma and Alex, and Alex is telling her, he's like, "You have to tell Norman, like he's lost his mind," and she just tells him no. And he's like, okay, well, he like is acting insane basically, and he's telling her, and she's just like, no, no, you just don't know him. You can't tell me what to do, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, okay, well, you have to make a choice. And he goes to leave, and she just says, I'm not giving you up. And I said, good for you, Norma. Stand your ground for your
I
happiness.
I did say that Alex has to be careful though because he's not wrong, but she's crazy.
Right.
Like, and the thing that this show does so well is that literally there is a 0% of the time where two people having those arguments would I ever take Norma's side.
Mm-hmm.
Like that particular argument they're having, Alex is in the right, like 100%. But I still just get so much anxiety for Norma just
Mm-hmm.
because of the way it's written.
Yeah. And then
That
because, like, you have to be so careful with her. And, like, Alex generally is very careful with her until it comes to this conversation because it's, the outcome is a little more important than some of the other things they disagree about.
right, and it's funny because he seems so aggressive, but it's because it's literally the first person ever who actually cares enough to talk back to her.
And like you feel that he feels a little more aggressive than normal, but like you also can feel that you're not like scared of him aggressive because he's always
Right.
so kind and level-headed about it. Even when he's like at his peak, he's still very level-headed about it.
Right, like, and he even says things about like, I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm sorry that that's the way this feels to you. This is why I'm saying these things. Like he's saying literally everything that you would want a supportive partner to say when you are putting yourself in a bad position.
Right. And he's like the only person on the show who like thinks before he speaks. Like he is not one to just say hurtful things without thinking.
Never.
When he says hurtful things, he means them. He knows he's saying them and he makes it very clear.
Correct.
So Alex is a smart cookie. He's a pretty smart cookie. Um, so then we go to Emma and Dylan, who are getting to the Bates home for dinner. Not weird at all. And I just said they're too good together because like they're doing this like they're really cute like okay we're at my family's house but I know that you're friends with Norman so you need to like go talk to him first. No problem. I'm gonna give you some space and then we'll come back together. And I was like, you guys like talk to each other. You communicate like humans.
Yeah.
Like you do such a great job. Like they're just so good together.
Hmm.
And they are only good for each other. So far they have not done anything toxic to the other one.
Well, I don't know if Dylan secretly stalking her potentially dead mother and not telling her about it is exactly
Okay, but like
healthy. But I don't think it's healthy for him either. Like
well
I don't
no.
know.
I don't think it's healthy for him, but I also like I don't think I'd want him to like tell her until he knows something for sure
Which
either.
is also why I think he hasn't. But then, like, what is he gonna do? Tell her that his brother killed her mom?
Maybe he's on the edge with the Bates.
I know. I don't know. I don't know. That's the only reason why I would question their actual like relationship and their communication and the way they treat each other. 100%, I'm here for it. But is he gonna protect Norman? Like that's where
You also have to remember he's like
it's
23 and has never
it's
had a family.
is every single healthy relationship in the show going to be ruined to protect Norman?
I mean, probably, but we just don't know yet.
Right.
I'm gonna try and believe it's not. I'm gonna try and believe in
Okay.
happiness, even though it's probably not gonna happen that way. But we see Emma and Norman reuniting, and Norman is telling her that he is so happy for her and Dylan. They should have gotten together sooner. And she's like, oh, she's like, we're gonna stay friends. And he's like, we're gonna be friends forever. Like, no question. And I was like, I really wish you two could be besties. Like, I wish Norman wasn't insane so that they could like actually be best friends because
No, it was fucking awkward though.
it
I
was,
just
but it's because we know like the history. Like if you take everything away and you just like see them on the surface, it's like kind of a cute like reunion. Like if you think that Norman is getting better, it's a great interaction. We
That's
obviously know
true.
he's not, but like
That's true.
if you
That's
think
true.
it
I
just like
guess.
Emma does, it's
Yeah. Yeah.
Emma just doesn't know. And then Dylan comes in and they're just all like one big happy family going to get their tree. And
Yeah, but somebody says that, I think Norman says we're all together. It's a Christmas miracle. And
yeah,
I said that is not what I would call this.
that is also not what I would call this. Yeah. And like as soon as they all exit the room, Dylan turns around and looks back at Norman's bed to where he found the note and the bear from Audrey because he's still
Hmm.
not feeling quite comfortable about
Well, the
things.
other thing is the bear is still there. Like
Yeah,
he took the note, but he didn't take the bear. The bear is still there. What if Emma had seen that?
that's a very good point. I didn't even think about that.
I did. All I could think of was what if she'd fucking seen that? What would have even happened?
And like, but like, how did she not see it? It was apparently her like prized childhood possession. Like she would have at
Right.
least been like, "Oh my God, we had the same bear growing up," and then he would have been like, "Oh no, that's yours." Like,
Right.
so yeah, I think that may have been like a misstep in there because I don't know how she didn't see it. I see what they were trying to do by showing us and not showing her, but I feel like she would have noticed it, you know?
Yeah, I didn't like that. That would probably be my only like flaw with direction.
Yeah, for sure. Um, so then we're driving to get the tree, and Norma is being so fussy. She is so annoyed with Norma, but she doesn't want to talk. And I was like, Norma, use your words.
She was like, how are you? And she's like, I'm fine. I said, ma'am, you are far from fine.
You're absolutely not fine. You are having a hissy fit. And like, I would also be annoyed with Norman if I was her, but like, I also would be like, here's why. You are the worst.
Yeah,
And you can't do things like this. You're not in charge of anyone. You're not even in charge of yourself because you're insane.
correct.
Um, So when they get out of the car, Norman's like apologizing for Norma and setting her up to look like the crazy one. And I was like, Norman, everyone knows you just got out of Pineview. Like,
I was like, everyone in this family is a fucking hot mess.
yeah, also like they know Norma. It's not like you just pick two random people off the street and we're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry about my mom. Like, it's her other son that she abandoned and Emma, who worked with her for 2 years. Like, these people
Yeah,
know her. And know she's crazy, but not in the same way you are.
correct.
And then Norma is trying to talk to Norma because Norman keeps following her around finally. She like breaks and she's like, what am I? A doll? You can't just like the two of you can't just fight over how I'm gonna go and do things. I was like, what kind of comparison is that, Norma? I was like, that is a very creepy comparison. But maybe it's meant to be foreshadowing of the movie.
Maybe.
But I didn't particularly like that phrase, and I
I
think
don't
it was meant to
either.
be that way. I think it was meant to be icky. Um,
This whole show was meant to be icky.
Very true, very true. And she's angry. She's like big mad at this point. Um, so we have a little break and go back to Dylan and Emma. We're talking about like buying a house in Seattle, and it's like, here's our happy little couple while everything else is falling apart. They're in their like little dream world.
Even then, it's not even like super happy because he's telling her that like he's always been on the outside in his family and he doesn't feel like he belongs with them and he thinks like leaving is the best thing because he won't come back. He won't see them again. And I was like, you have always been on the outside and you finally have an out. So fucking take it and run. Like, why are we even concerning ourselves with it?
Absolutely. Dylan, run while you can. Like, ugh,
Like I get that you're always gonna want your family. Like there's always a hole that doesn't feel filled. But
right.
you now you've had the last 2 years where you have had them. And it's clearly not something you want.
It wasn't great.
So like so you've seen it. You know it's not something that even if you could fit into, you'd want to fit into. So
Right.
just be okay with that and leave.
Yeah. Yeah. So Yeah, so that's where we leave that. Norma and Norman are, oh, he's telling her Norman and Norman are messed up and that they're dragging him into a black hole. And I was like, yes, correct. All of these things are accurate. Um, and then we go back to Norma and Norman arguing again.
Yeah.
And Norman knows they're sleeping together. And finally, she's like, I like him. And I was like, okay, first of all, Norman, you love him.
Yes.
Second of all, like, calm down. You're the adult. You can be like Norman. Get over it. Like,
Right.
this is how
Well,
life
but
is.
also when she tells him how she feels about Alex, he vomits. And I literally was like, the idea of your mother loving someone should not make you vomit. Like, that is
I
not the correct response.
I burst out laughing. I was like, what is happening here? I was like, Norman.
Like, that is never the correct response.
Absolutely
Ever.
not. Absolutely not. Um, so they go back to the house and Dylan and Emma are leaving and Dylan's like, should we go say bye to Norman? How's everything? And Norma's like, no. She's like, no one needs to go say anything to him. He's having a hard time with change, so just leave him alone.
Yeah.
Okay, and then she tells him that they should sleep in the hotel because it's freezing. And I was like, oh, why didn't you do that last night when it was freezing?
Didn't Norma say, I wish I would have thought of this last
Yeah.
night? I I don't understand why. Like, I don't understand why that would never crossed her mind.
Right? Like, it's literally downstairs. Like, if you even glance at a window, you see your hotel. Like,
Right.
it's, and I'm sure you see that neon light all night long. Like, there's no way it's not just like in your face constantly.
Like, I always know a short list of all the beds that are in walking distance from me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Never would I have that many empty beds near me and not be sure of that I could go to one. That
Right.
does.
100%.
I mean,
100%.
I do know I like sleep more than the average person,
Mhm.
but still, always aware of where the beds are.
Right. I do enjoy sleep. I don't remember what it feels like, but I'm fond of it.
Yeah.
So there's that. Um, so excuse me, where are you going? And so then Dylan and Emma are back in her room, and I thought she was chugging vodka when I first saw this scene. I was like,
No,
what's going
just
on?
just
Just
taking her
water. Just
taking
some
her pills.
good old water time. But then I was like, why? Like, she's like, thanks so much for sleeping on the couch. I was like, why is Dylan even sleeping there? Like, as far as like, he hasn't said he sold his house yet.
No, he
Like,
did.
did he? But like, also, I don't
He,
understand why he's staying there. I feel like there's other places for him to stay.
um, yeah, with Norma and Norman.
I guess I don't know, but like, that just felt like a weird choice. Like,
No, I love it. I think it makes the most sense. Because, okay, slight tangent, because, that's the person I am, and welcome to our podcast. We talk about nonsense.
right,
Um, I've been very recently, as in yesterday and today, having the same dilemma, like intensely the same dilemma. Because Dan and I are not married yet, and Dan and I have very early, like on our first date, talked about we would not live together until we were married.
right.
But how do you do that? Like, do you buy a house together and then just not move in? Do you like get married and then like not live together until you buy a house? Do you like get married and like have an apartment? Like, I can't just like have a house that night that I didn't have. I don't understand it. It doesn't make sense. I am very overwhelmed about it, and I would also just sleep on the couch.
Well, that's like Caitlin and Jamie. Like Jamie, they bought a house together, and then Jamie moved in before they got married, and then she moved in when they got married.
That's who I'm gonna have to talk to. I was like, I don't know anybody who does things the correct way anymore. I'm gonna have to talk to Jamie and Caitlin because I don't know how to be an adult.
Give them a call because I'm not planning to live with anyone except a dog ever again. And everyone else I know is already living with their significant other, so I can't help you.
But yeah, so I would also sleep on the couch until I could sleep anywhere else. So I got it. I was there for it.
That's totally fine. I was totally fine with him sleeping on the couch, but it seems very sudden. Like he's only known this family for what, like a month? Like her dad, and he's just like living there now,
I mean, to be fair, he's moving to Seattle with them.
which also feels kind of quick. I mean, it's the best thing for him, don't get me wrong, and I'm glad he's doing it, but it still like feels very sudden.
And I've been saying that for weeks, and you were acting like I was raining on the happiness parade.
The only happy thing we have in this show. I think it just got me whenever they were like already living together when he had a house and then he had like other places he could stay. But he's now living with them. And that just
And but also it's not the only happiness because the next scene is the happiest I've ever been watching this show.
well, um the next scene?
Yes.
Oh, the next bit in Dylan and Emma's.
No. The
Okay, well
next
we're not
scene.
done with Dylan and Emma yet.
Okay.
They're she's like, thanks so much for like staying on the couch. And he's like, okay, I'm gonna go to bed. So he like kisses her and he goes to sleep and she's like, stop leaving. She's like, everything is fine. And he just looks at her and he says, if you hurt yourself, I'm gonna kill you. And then just like goes after her. And I was like, that's fun. I've definitely
Love
told
it.
people before that like
Yeah.
not necessarily in the same situation, but I've
Right,
like
but
told people like in general, I'm like, if you hurt yourself, I'm gonna kill you. Like,
yeah, for sure. I definitely said that.
yeah. So then we go to Norman, who is peering at Alex out of the window, and Norma tells Alex that she told Norman, and he just keeps looking at them, and I'm so sorry. Sadie's making a lot of noise. Um,
Well, she's
she's climbing on a
Sadie.
box. She's climbing on a box, and I don't understand why she needs to climb on a box.
I don't Sadie, get it together. She's telling him, she told him that she told him, and he's like, well, how did you take it? Like, how are you? And he's like, and I literally was like, just thank you for loving her through her trauma. Like,
Right.
that was, and then because he says all the right things and he loves her, and then he's so cool. And then she goes to hug him, and she was like, I just have this like magic sense of calm when I'm around you. And he was like, that's because I'm a magical unicorn. And she's like, did you just say you're a unicorn? He's like, what are you talking about? And I have never been happier ever
I
than
had to
I
rewind that scene like 3 times. I was like, did this just happen?
it
Like,
was
what's
it
going
was
on?
the most amazing, like beautiful, real life thing. I was like, I have literally never been happier at all watching this show. It was beautiful and perfect. And then I wrote, and now this pervert is gonna fucking ruin everything.
Everything. Because then we get creepy Norman, who is watching them through. First, he sees them through the window, and then they go to their room, and he like carves a peephole in the motel room, and this is where we get set up for the Psycho movie,
Mm-hmm.
Above and Beyond. And he's now watching them through a creepy peephole. And it
And that scene freaked me out because when he took the painting off and the hook was there, I thought he was just going to use the hole that the hook was in. But then he did and dug it bigger. And I was like, what the fuck?
right, like how is that not obvious too?
Right.
Like Jesus Christ, it was insane. But yeah, so then we leave this creepiness to meet with the repair guy who comes out and he tells her that they could have burnt the whole house down if she would have tried to turn on the gas stove again or the gas like heat again. And I was like, great job. Glad you didn't do that, Norma. And
Right.
then we have our first family dinner, which is very awkward. Um,
Mhm.
Norman tells them that he's looking for a part-time job. Sadie, there are other places to walk that are not on top of boxes. I promise you there are.
Dogs, man.
No. And so they're having their family dinner, and Norman's like, so I'm looking for a part-time job because I'm gonna get my own insurance and you don't have to pay for me anymore. And Norman's like, stop being rude. And uh, Romero's like, no, no, it's fine. He's like, I think it's a great idea for you to get a part-time job,
For
have
you
your own
to like be
insurance.
independent.
Right. He's like, but it is expensive. Like, I don't mind paying for it or whatever. And then Norman starts making this like sinking ship reference so he can see if Norman will pick him over Alex. And he's
Yeah.
like, who would you save if you could only save one of us? And she's like, Norman. And Alex is like, what if it's just me and you and we just leave her there? And I was like, that is the best response.
Right. That's exactly the correct response.
It
Like,
was so funny. And she seemed a little upset about it, but she was like,
yeah.
couldn't figure out how to respond. And in the end, he tells her she's a hypocrite. And I was like, sometimes,
Yeah.
not necessarily this time.
Right.
She's making the right decisions right now. Um, and so
I
So
don't,
he starts losing his mind.
yeah, I was gonna say, is this when he calls him stepdaddy? Because
Yeah.
I
And
literally threw up in my mouth.
he starts telling her about their mother-son bond and how no one will ever understand how close they are. No one will ever be closer than the two of them. And Norma, I cannot read my own. Oh, and Norma stood up for herself. And I was like, good for you.
I wrote, hell yes, Norma, be the adult.
And then Alex is like, I'll go talk to him. And I was like, that doesn't feel like the right way to do it, but okay. So Alex goes outside to talk to him, and Norman is chopping wood with an axe. Because why not?
Right.
That's not what you're doing.
Norman also like says the exact correct thing again because I'm sorry, Alex says the exact correct thing again because Alex always says the exact correct thing. But I wrote, I don't think you understand that he literally can't process human emotions.
Right, right. Like, I think it's just you gotta just separate yourself from him. It's just not great.
Yeah.
Um, but then he acted like he was gonna swing the axe at Norman, I mean at Alex. And Alex is like, back up, Norman, back up. And I'm like, Alex, you back up. Like, he's in reach of you right now.
Right.
I wouldn't trust him. And I thought you were gonna panic when you were watching the scene.
Oh, I was panicked. Absolutely. I don't have any notes because I couldn't.
Right. Totally fair. Totally fair. But in the end, he did not kill Romero, and Alex goes inside and tells Norma he's moving back in because he doesn't.
Oh, but not only that he's moving back in, he literally said, I will go get the rest of my stuff to not tomorrow. I'm not leaving you alone in the house with him. And I was like, that is the fucking correct answer, Alex.
Absolutely, 1000%. And that's where we end. So I don't have any trivia for you. I don't have
That's
any news. I covered everything in the middle of the episode that was related to the episode of the movie.
love it.
Um, so who do you want to punch?
Norman.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't know that there will ever be an answer anymore that isn't Norman.
right.
He's a garbage human.
Totally fair. Totally fair. Well, maybe not like the fairest choice, but because you picked Norman, I'm gonna pick Norma because she did stand up for herself a lot, but she also like didn't make Norman
And
go back to high.
yeah,
And
fair.
like she did cause a lot of problems for herself when she could have just like reinstituted him. So there's that.
Yeah,
Um, who's your MVP?
Alex.
Correct. Yep, yep. He is indeed. Um, I guess
Yeah,
my MVP is going to be Dylan because he's actively trying to figure out what happened to Emma's mom and trying to do what's best for everyone, even
yeah.
though he is 23 years old and doesn't know what he's doing, and
Mhm.
should not have to be in charge of any of it. But it's fine. It's all beside the point, I guess. Um, but yeah, so do you have any like final thoughts on this episode? Do you like know what's going on?
I just want to marry Alex Romero.
Yeah, totally fair, totally fair. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's all. because it's everybody sucks.
Yeah, yeah. Except Alex, who I'm sure is
So
gonna do something crazy one day because
because
you
it's Faith
know,
Motel and it's been although it's so funny because I want to go back and listen to the episode, the like first two or three episodes and see what I said in season one about Alex because I don't think I loved him in season one.
I don't think you did either. I think that is very true.
And now, like looking back, I'm like, what was I thinking? This man is perfect.
Okay, perfect is a strong word. He did
That's
kill two men,
and did fall for quite literally the craziest woman he's ever seen.
and
So
did um let the drug business go on until he decided it wasn't, and then shut it down. Um, so, but in relation to everyone else in Bates Motel,
yeah,
it's probably a big winner. So,
yeah.
ah, well, if you love someone in Bates Motel who's not Alex, tell us and not tell him because of course we love Dylan.
Right.
Tell
Yeah.
us who and tell us why because we need to psychoanalyze you. Just kidding, just kidding. But we might do that.
We might, yeah.
We'd like for you to email us, and we also like for you to talk to us on social media, which you can find us anywhere at Death and Aliens. You can find me at CE Cloud 13,
And you can find me everywhere at EMKAY_superstar.
and we will see you for Sci-Fi Sunday.
And our Sci-Fi Sunday episode will be the first episode of the year
Oh my God!
2023. This is the final episode of 2022.
Oh, it is! We've done it! We've made it in 2023!
But that also means 2022. You started recording with me mid 2021. So this is our first full 100% year together.
Ah! We made it! We did it!
We did it. Yay.
And I still like you.
And I
Jacob.
still like you.
Ah, great. We are.
And we really still like you guys, our few fans.
I don't
But
know if we like you as much as we like Bates Motel and Stargate, but we might. If you talk to us on
maybe.
social media, we definitely will.
Yes, for sure. For sure.
All right. So we'll see you for Sci-Fi Sunday. See ya.
Bye.